My parents sold the lake house my grandmother left me to fund my sister's $150,000 wedding without telling me. When they laughingly said, "Thanks for the wedding present," I smiled and told them to check their mail. Their faces froze when they saw what was inside. I'm standing on the deck of what used to be my sanctuary, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold and crimson. The wooden railing feels smooth under my fingers, worn by decades of hands just like mine, just like my grandmother's before me. This house was supposed to be my forever home, the place where I'd build my own family, create my own memories. Grandma Rose always said, "One day, sweetheart, this will all be yours." This house has been in our family for 3 generations. 8 years, 8 long years of working double shifts as a nurse, skipping vacations, driving a beat-up Honda while my friends bought new cars. Every penny of overtime pay, every holiday bonus, every tax refund went toward paying off this house. The mortgage papers with my name, Sarah Martinez, printed in bold black letters felt like holding a diploma. I did it. I actually did it. The house itself isn't much to look at from the outside. It's a modest 2-bedroom cabin with faded blue shutters and a wraparound porch that creaks when you walk on it. But it sits on 3 acres of prime lakefront property with a private dock and a view that takes your breath away every single morning. Real estate agents have been calling for years, offering ridiculous amounts of money. I always hung up on them. My phone buzzes. Emily's name flashes across the screen with about 15 heart emojis next to it. My little sister, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. "Sarah, oh my God, I have the most amazing news." Her voice is practically vibrating with excitement. "David proposed. Can you believe it? We're getting married." I sink into the old rocking chair that Grandma Rose loved so much. "That's wonderful, Em. I'm so happy for you both. We're thinking a spring wedding. Something really special, you know. I've been dreaming about this since I was little. Remember how we used to play wedding dress up with Mom's old curtains?" I do remember. I also remember that Emily always got to be the bride while I was relegated to being the priest or the wedding planner. Some things never change. "We're meeting with a wedding planner tomorrow," Emily continues, her voice getting breathier with each word. "Mom thinks we should go all out. You only get married once, right?" "Well, hopefully once. David's family has money, but they're not really the wedding type. More like the elope in Vegas type. But I want the fairy tale." There's something in her tone that makes my stomach clench. I've heard this voice before, usually right before I'm asked to help pay for something Emily wants but can't afford. "How much are we talking about, Em?" "Well, the venue I want is $30,000 just for the reception. And then there's the dress, the flowers, the photographer, the band." She pauses, and I can almost hear the calculator running in her head. "Maybe $150,000? I know it sounds like a lot, but—" "Emily, that's more than most people's houses cost." I know, but Mom and Dad said not to worry about it. They said we'll figure something out. Family always finds a way, right? Family always finds a way. I've been hearing that phrase my entire life, usually right before I'm expected to sacrifice something for the greater good of the Martinez family unit. After we hang up, I sit in the growing darkness, listening to the loons call across the water. The house feels different somehow, like it's holding its breath. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, but something about that conversation doesn't sit right with me. 3 days later, I'm driving to my parents' house for Sunday dinner when my phone rings. It's my mother, Linda, and she sounds off. "Sarah, honey, we need to talk when you get here. Your father and I have been discussing Emily's wedding, and we think we've found a solution." The way she says solution makes my blood run cold. Their house is a modest split level in a middle-class neighborhood where every lawn looks exactly the same. Dad's been retired from the post office for 2 years now, and Mom works part-time at a local boutique. They're comfortable, but $150,000 comfortable. Not even close. I find them in the kitchen, whispering urgently over a stack of papers. They jump apart when I walk in, like teenagers caught making out. "Sarah, perfect timing." Dad stands up, his face overly bright. "Your mother was just telling me about her conversation with Emily's wedding planner. Apparently, David's family isn't as generous as we hoped. Robert, Mom warns quietly. What? It's true. His parents basically said they'd pay for the rehearsal dinner and that's it. Everything else is on us. I pour myself a glass of water from the kitchen tap, trying to process this information. So, what's the plan? My parents exchange one of those loaded looks that married couples perfect after 30-plus years together. Well, Mom begins carefully, we've been thinking about our assets, what we have available to help Emily have the wedding of her dreams. And I'm starting to feel like I'm being led somewhere I don't want to go. The lake house, Dad says simply. The glass slips from my hand and shatters on the kitchen floor. Water and glass spread across the linoleum, but I can't move to clean it up. What about the lake house? Sweetheart, you have to understand, Mom says, grabbing paper towels and kneeling to clean up my mess. Emily only gets one wedding, one chance to have everything perfect. And you already have the house. You're all set. I have the house because I worked my ass off for 8 years to pay for it. Language, Sarah, Dad says automatically. Don't you dare police my language right now. That house isn't just an asset. It's my home. It's where I live. But you could live anywhere, Mom continues, still on her knees, still cleaning up the broken glass. You're young, you're single, you're flexible. Emily and David need to start their marriage off right. They need security. They need $150,000 for one day. Dad's face hardens. Don't be selfish, Sarah. Family helps family. Selfish. There it is. The word that's been used to control me my entire life. When I didn't want to share my birthday money with Emily when we were kids. Selfish. When I chose nursing school over the cheaper community college so I could help Emily with her tuition later, somehow still selfish for not choosing the cheaper option. When I worked through Christmas for 3 years running to pay off the house faster, selfish for not spending more time with family. How exactly would this work? I ask, my voice deadly calm. We'd handle everything, Mom says quickly, finally standing up with a handful of wet paper towels. The real estate agent, the paperwork, all of it. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. Except finding somewhere else to live. You could move back in here temporarily, Dad offers. Your old room is still available. I look around the kitchen where I ate breakfast every morning for 18 years. The same yellow wallpaper with tiny roosters that I begged them to change when I was in high school. The same cramped space that felt suffocating by the time I graduated. Have you talked to Emily about this? Another loaded look between my parents. She knows we're exploring options, Mom says carefully. Does she know the option is my house? Silence. We thought it would be better coming from us, Dad finally admits. You know how Emily gets when she feels guilty about something. Emily gets dramatic when she feels guilty. She cries and apologizes and promises to make it up to you while simultaneously making you feel terrible for making her cry in the first place. It's a talent. I need time to think about this, I say. Of course, Mom says, but there's relief in her voice, like my not saying an immediate no is the same as saying yes. Take all the time you need. The wedding isn't until spring. I drive home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The house looks different when I pull into the driveway, smaller somehow, less permanent, like it's already slipping away from me. Inside, I pour myself a large glass of wine and sit in Grandma Rose's rocking chair, staring out at the lake. The water is perfectly still, like a mirror reflecting the last light of the day. This is my house. I paid for it. My name is on the deed, on the mortgage paperwork, on the insurance policy. They can't just sell it, can they? My phone buzzes with a text from Emily. Mom told me about the conversation. I'm so grateful you're even considering this. You're the best sister ever. Considering, as if it's already a done deal. I don't respond. The next few weeks pass in a strange fog. Emily sends me daily updates about wedding planning, photos of dress options, venue tours, catering menus. Each text feels like a tiny knife twist. Every time she mentions the cost of something, I calculate how many shifts I'd have to work to afford it. The photographer we want is $8,000, she texts with a crying, laughing emoji. But look at these engagement photos. $8,000. That's 2 months of my take-home pay. Found the perfect flowers. Only $5,000 for everything. $5,000. 3 months of my car payments. My parents start acting weird around me. They invite me for dinner more often, which would be sweet if I didn't know they were buttering me up. Mom brings up how Emily has been so stressed about wedding planning. Dad mentions how proud Grandma Rose would be to see Emily getting married in style. You know, Mom says one evening as we're doing dishes, Grandma Rose always said the most important thing was family taking care of each other. Grandma Rose also said that house should stay in the family, I reply, scrubbing a plate harder than necessary. Well, it would be. Emily is family. Emily has never spent a single night in that house. She doesn't even like the lake. Remember her exact words last summer? It's so buggy and there's no cell service. Mom's hands still in the soapy water. She was just having a bad day. She called it Sarah's creepy old house in the middle of nowhere. You're being dramatic. Dramatic. Another weapon in their arsenal. Anytime I express an emotion they don't like, I'm being dramatic. I start avoiding family gatherings. When I do show up, the conversation feels strained, like everyone's walking on eggshells around me. Emily bounces between treating me like a saint for my sacrifice and acting like the whole thing is already settled. I can't wait for you to see the venue, she gushes during one particularly painful dinner. It's right on the water, kind of like your house, but fancier. More romantic. My house is plenty romantic, I say quietly. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, professional, like designed for events. David, poor David, looks uncomfortable through most of these conversations. He's a nice guy, quiet, works in IT, clearly adores Emily, but also clearly has no idea what he's gotten himself into with the Martinez family dynamics. Maybe we should scale back the wedding, he suggests one evening. My parents think $150,000 is excessive anyway. The temperature in the room drops about 20 degrees. Your parents don't understand how important this is, Emily says, her voice tight. This is our one day, our one chance to celebrate our love with everyone we care about. I just think there might be other ways to... Are you saying you don't want to marry me? And there it is, Emily's nuclear option. The conversation ends there because David loves her and doesn't want to fight, and because the rest of us have learned over the years that challenging Emily when she's in this mood only makes everything worse. But I catch David looking at me across the dinner table, and I see something in his eyes that might be understanding, or maybe it's just indigestion. 3 months before the wedding, I get a call that changes everything. Miss Martinez, this is Janet from Lakeside Realty. I understand your family is looking to list the property at 1247 Pine Lake Road. My blood turns to ice. I'm sorry, what? Your parents contacted us about selling the lake house. They said you'd given permission for them to handle the listing since you're out of state. I have them down as your power of attorney for this transaction. Power of attorney. I never signed anything giving them power of attorney. There's been a mistake, I say, my voice surprisingly steady. I never authorized anyone to sell my house. Oh, Janet sounds confused. Well, we have documentation here. Let me check with my supervisor and call you back. She doesn't call back that day. Or the next day. On the third day, I drive to their office. Janet is a woman in her 50s with perfectly coiffed hair and a nervous smile. She shows me the paperwork, official-looking documents with my signature on them. Except it's not my signature. It's close, but the S in Sarah is wrong, and I always put a little flourish on the Z in Martinez that's missing here. When did you receive these documents? I ask. Last week. Your mother dropped them off personally. My mother, who used to help me with homework and probably knows my signature better than anyone. I need copies of everything, I say. Janet's nervous smile gets more nervous. I'll need to check with my supervisor. I need copies of everything, or I'm calling the police and reporting fraud. I get the copies. That night, I sit at my kitchen table with the forged documents spread out in front of me. My hands are shaking as I dial my parents' number. Sarah, honey, we were just talking about you, Mom says when she answers. She sounds so normal, so cheerful, like she hasn't just committed a felony. We need to talk, all of us, tonight. Is everything okay? You sound upset. I'm coming over. Call Emily and David. This concerns all of us. The silence on the other end of the line stretches for so long, I think the call might have dropped. Sarah, Mom finally says, her voice smaller now. Maybe we should... 1 hour. All of us. I hang up. The drive to their house feels like the longest 20 minutes of my life. My phone buzzes constantly. Texts from Emily asking what's going on, from Mom saying we should talk privately first, from Dad saying there's been a misunderstanding. They're all waiting in the living room when I arrive. Emily and David on the couch, my parents in their respective chairs, everyone looking like they're at a funeral. I set the copied documents on the coffee table. So, I say, my voice eerily calm, who wants to explain why my signature was forged on real estate documents? The silence is deafening. Emily picks up one of the papers, her face going pale as she reads. Oh my God, she whispers. Mom, you said Sarah agreed to this. She did agree, Mom says quickly. We talked about it. She said she needed time to think, and then she never said no, so we assumed. You assumed wrong. Dad clears his throat. Sarah, we can work this out. We're family. Family doesn't forge documents. Family doesn't steal houses. We weren't stealing, Dad says, his voice rising. We were helping Emily by taking my house without my permission. Emily is crying now, ugly tears that make her mascara run. I didn't know, she sobs. I swear I didn't know they hadn't asked you properly. I thought you wanted to help. I look at my little sister, the golden child, the princess of the family, and for the first time in my life, I see her clearly. She's not evil. She's not malicious. She's just been so protected, so shielded from consequences her entire life that she genuinely doesn't understand that other people's sacrifices aren't automatic. Emily, I say gently, when was the last time you asked me how I was doing? About my life, my job, my feelings about anything? She blinks through her tears. We talk all the time. You talk about your life, your problems, your needs. When was the last time you asked about mine? More silence. I work 60 hours a week, I continue. I haven't taken a real vacation in 3 years. I drive a car with 200,000 miles on it because every extra penny went toward paying off that house. Do you know why the house was so important to me? Emily shakes her head. Because it was the first thing in my life that was truly mine. Not shared, not borrowed, not given to me out of pity or obligation. Mine. I earned it. But we're family, Emily whispers. Family shares. No, Emily, I share. I've been sharing my whole life. My birthday money when we were kids, my college fund so you could go to the better school, my time, my energy, my savings. I share. You take. David reaches for Emily's hand, but she pulls away from him. That's not fair, she says, her voice getting stronger. I never asked you to sacrifice for me. You never had to ask. It was just expected by everyone in this room except you. I turn to my parents. How long has the house been on the market? Mom and Dad exchange another one of their looks. 2 weeks, Dad finally admits. Any offers? A few, Mom says quietly. How much? Sarah, maybe we should... How much? $280,000, Dad says. I feel like I've been punched in the stomach. The house is worth almost $300,000, and they were going to sell it for Emily's wedding without giving me a cent of my own equity. So let me get this straight, I say, standing up. You forged my signature to sell my house, a house I spent 8 years paying for, to fund a wedding that costs more than most people make in 3 years, and you expected me to just go along with it? We thought you'd understand, Mom says, tears starting to fall down her cheeks. Emily's happiness? What about my happiness? What about my dreams? What about my life? You're being selfish, Dad says, but there's no conviction in his voice anymore. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. You know what? You're right. I am being selfish. For the first time in my life, I'm being selfish. and it feels amazing. I gather up the copies of the forged documents. The house sale is canceled, I say. I'm calling Janet tomorrow morning and pulling it off the market. Emily, you need to find another way to pay for your wedding. And Mom, Dad, we're going to have a long conversation about fraud and forgery when I decide I'm ready to have it. I head toward the door, but Emily's voice stops me. Sarah, wait. Please. Can't we work something out? Maybe you could just loan us the money? We'll pay you back after the wedding, I promise. I turn back to look at her, really look at her. She's 28 years old, beautiful, beloved, and has no concept of how the world works for people who aren't handed everything they want. Emily, I say softly, I love you, but I can't save you from the consequences of wanting things you can't afford. Nobody ever taught you that lesson because I was always there to bail everyone out, but not this time. But the deposits, she says desperately. We've already put down deposits on everything, the venue, the caterer, the band. If we cancel now, we lose thousands of dollars. Then I guess you'll have to figure out how to pay for it yourselves, like adults. I leave them sitting in that living room, Emily crying, David looking shell-shocked, my parents staring at the floor like the answers might be written in the carpet fibers. The drive home is surreal. I feel like I'm floating, like I've just jumped out of an airplane, and I'm not sure if my parachute is going to open. By the time I pull into my driveway, my hands are shaking so hard I can barely turn off the ignition. Inside the house, I pour myself a very large glass of wine and sit in Grandma Rose's chair. The lake is dark and still, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. This is my house, my sanctuary, my home. My phone starts ringing almost immediately. First Emily, then Mom, then Dad, then Emily again. I let them all go to voicemail. When I finally listen to the messages an hour later, they're a mix of pleading, anger, and guilt trips that span the entire emotional spectrum. But buried in Emily's third message between the sobs and the accusations is something that makes my blood boil. I can't believe you're being so cruel, she says through her tears. After everything Mom and Dad have done for you, after all the sacrifices they've made, you're destroying my wedding over money, over a stupid house. I hope you're happy living there all alone for the rest of your life, because after this, you won't have any family left. I delete the message and turn off my phone, but her words stick with me as I lie in bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am destroying the family over money. Maybe I am being cruel. Then I remember the forged signature, the sale arranged behind my back, the casual assumption that my 8 years of sacrifice meant nothing compared to Emily's one perfect day. No, I'm not being cruel. I'm being sane. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing myself. And if that makes me the villain in their story, so be it. The next morning, I wake up feeling like I've been hit by a truck. My head is pounding, my eyes are swollen from crying, and for a moment, I forget what happened. Then reality crashes back, and I feel that familiar weight in my chest. I make coffee with shaking hands and sit on the deck, watching the morning mist rise from the lake. The water is perfectly calm, like a sheet of glass reflecting the pale sunrise. This view, this peace, it's mine. I earned it. And I almost let them take it away. My phone has 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. I delete them all without reading them. Instead, I call my best friend Rachel, a nurse practitioner who moved to Portland last year. She answers on the second ring. Sarah, it's 6 a.m. Are you okay? Rach, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay, you're scaring me. What's going on? I tell her everything. The whole story pours out of me like a dam bursting. Emily's wedding, the forged documents, the confrontation last night. Rachel listens without interrupting, making small sounds of disbelief at all the right moments. When I finish, there's a long silence. Holy shit, Sarah, she finally says. Your family is toxic as hell. Don't say that. They're not. Babe, they forged your signature to steal your house. That's not family dysfunction, that's criminal behavior. The word criminal hits me like a slap. I've been so caught up in the family drama aspect that I haven't fully processed the legal implications. You think I should press charges? I think you should call a lawyer, like, today, before they try to pull any more shit. After we hang up, I spend the morning researching real estate law and family fraud cases on my laptop. What I find makes my stomach churn. Forging someone's signature on property documents isn't just unethical, it's a felony. In some states, it can carry a prison sentence of up to 10 years. My parents could go to jail. The thought should horrify me, but instead, I feel a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in my life, I understand that actions have consequences, even for the people I love, especially for the people I love. I'm deep in a legal blog about property fraud when my doorbell rings. Through the window, I see David standing on my porch, looking miserable. I debate not answering, but something about his posture, shoulders slumped, hands shoved deep in his pockets, makes me feel sorry for him. He didn't ask to be dragged into the Martinez family circus. David, I say, opening the door. This is a surprise. I'm sorry to bother you, he says quietly. I know you probably don't want to see anyone from us right now, but I needed to talk to you, away from Emily and your parents. I step aside to let him in. He's never been to the lake house before, and I watch him take in the rustic furniture, the family photos on the mantel, the view of the water through the picture windows. It's beautiful, he says simply. I can see why you love it here. Thanks. Coffee? Please? We sit at my kitchen table, 2 mugs between us like a peace offering. David stares into his coffee for a long time before speaking. I didn't know, he says finally. About the forged signature, about them going behind your back. Emily told me you'd agreed to sell the house to help with the wedding. She said you were excited to help. Did that seem likely to you? That I'd be excited to give up my house? He winces. Honestly, no, but I don't know your family dynamics. I figured maybe it was a cultural thing. Some families are more generous with each other. Generous. I taste the word like it's sour. Is that what Emily calls it? Emily doesn't really understand money, David says carefully. Her parents have always made sure she had everything she needed. She's never had to worry about rent or grocery budgets or student loans. She knows things cost money, but she doesn't really get it. And you do? I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college, so yeah, I get it. He looks up at me and I see exhaustion in his eyes. I've been trying to talk her into scaling back the wedding for months. Every time I suggest something cheaper, she acts like I'm trying to ruin her dreams. So why are you marrying her? The question hangs in the air between us. David takes a long sip of coffee before answering. Because when it's just the 2 of us, she's amazing. She's funny and kind and she makes me want to be better. But when her family gets involved, he trails off, shaking his head. It's like she becomes a different person, like she's performing for them. I know exactly what he means. I've watched Emily transform from my sweet little sister into the family princess whenever our parents are around. It's like she can't help herself. David, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think this wedding is really what Emily wants? Or is it what she thinks she's supposed to want? He's quiet for so long, I think he's not going to answer. I think, he says slowly, Emily has been told her whole life that she deserves a fairy tale, and fairy tales are expensive. After David leaves, I feel more confused than ever. Part of me wants to hate Emily, to write her off as a spoiled brat who doesn't care about anyone but herself. But David's words stick with me. What if Emily is just as trapped in this family dynamic as I am? What if she's been programmed to expect sacrifices from me, just like I've been programmed to make them? That afternoon, I drive to the county courthouse and request copies of all the property records for my house. The clerk, a bored-looking woman in her 40s, pulls up the files on her computer. Huh, she says, frowning at the screen. That's weird. What's weird? There are 2 sets of documents filed for this property. One set from last month showing a pending sale and another set from this morning showing the sale was canceled. My blood runs cold. Canceled by who? Let me check. Says here it was canceled by the property owner, Sarah Martinez. I didn't cancel anything this morning. The clerk looks up at me, then back at her screen. Are you Sarah Martinez? Yes, but I didn't file any paperwork today. Well, somebody did, and they had all the right documentation. She turns her monitor toward me. See? Filed at 9:17 this morning. I stare at the screen, my mind racing. Someone canceled the sale using my name. Someone who had access to my personal information and knew how to forge my signature. I need to speak to whoever filed this, I say. That would be against policy, but I can tell you it was filed by Martinez Realty Services. I've never heard of Martinez Realty Services. I'm walking back to my car when my phone rings. It's my mother. Sarah, honey, we need to talk. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can you come home, please? That's not my home anymore, Mom. There's a long pause. Can you come to our house? Your father and I, we've been talking all night. We want to make this right. Against my better judgment, I agree to meet them, but this time, I'm going prepared. I stop at an office supply store and buy a small digital recorder. I don't know if secretly recording my parents is legal, but at this point, I don't trust anyone in my family to tell the truth. They're waiting in the living room when I arrive, and they both look like they've aged 10 years overnight. Mom's eyes are red and swollen, and Dad's hair is sticking up like he's been running his hands through it. Sarah, Mom says, standing up as I enter. Thank you for coming. I sit across from them, my purse in my lap with the recorder running inside. We owe you an apology, Dad says. A big one. Okay. What we did was wrong, Mom continues. The forged signature, the sale behind your back, all of it. We were so focused on helping Emily that we lost sight of what we were doing to you. I wait. There has to be more. We've canceled the sale, Dad says. Your house is off the market. I know. I went to the courthouse today. They exchange a look. Then you know we're trying to make things right, Mom says. Are you? Or are you trying to avoid criminal charges? The color drains from both their faces. Sarah, Dad says carefully, we're family. We don't need to involve lawyers or courts or... You involved them the moment you forged my signature. It wasn't supposed to go this far, Mom says, tears starting to fall. We hoped you'd come around. We thought once you saw how happy Emily was, you'd understand. Understand what? That my happiness doesn't matter? That my 8 years of work and sacrifice mean nothing compared to Emily's one perfect day? That's not... Dad starts. That's exactly what it is. I lean forward, my voice getting stronger. Do you have any idea what you've put me through? The stress, the betrayal, the feeling that my own family sees me as nothing more than a source of money? Mom is crying harder now. We don't see you that way. Really? When was the last time you called to ask how I was doing? Not because you needed something, not because Emily needed something, but just because you cared about your daughter's life? Silence. When was the last time you came to visit me at the lake house, the house I've been living in for 2 years? More silence. When was the last time you remembered my birthday without Emily reminding you? Dad's face crumples. Sarah, I've been the family ATM for so long that you forgot I was a person, and the worst part is, I let you. I enabled this by always saying yes, always sacrificing, always putting everyone else's needs before my own. We're sorry, Mom whispers. We're so sorry. Sorry isn't enough this time. I stand up, slinging my purse over my shoulder. Where are you going? Dad asks. Home, to my house. To think about whether I want to press charges or just cut contact with all of you. Sarah, please, Mom pleads. Don't tear this family apart. I stop at the door and turn back to them. I'm not tearing anything apart, Mom. I'm just finally refusing to be the glue that holds together something that was already broken. That evening, I sit on my deck with a glass of wine and the legal documents spread out on the table beside me. The lake is like a mirror, reflecting the sunset in shades of pink and gold. It's beautiful and peaceful, and it's mine. My phone buzzes with a text from Emily. Can we talk? Just you and me? I stare at the message for a long time before responding. Come to the lake house. Alone. She arrives an hour later, driving David's Honda because her car is in the shop. She looks smaller somehow, less radiant than usual. Her hair is in a messy ponytail, and she's wearing an old college sweatshirt instead of her usual carefully coordinated outfits. "Thank you for seeing me," she says quietly. We sit on the deck, the lake stretching out before us like a painting. Emily has never spent much time here, and I watch her take in the view with what looks like genuine appreciation. "It really is beautiful," she says. "I forgot how peaceful it is." "You've never liked it here." "I was wrong." She pulls her knees up to her chest, making herself smaller. "I've been wrong about a lot of things." We sit in silence for a while, listening to the loons call across the water. "I canceled the wedding," Emily says suddenly. I turn to stare at her. "What?" "I called everyone this morning. The venue, the caterer, the band, the photographer. I canceled everything." "Emily." "I lost some of the deposits, but not all of them. It turns out, if you cancel far enough in advance, most vendors are pretty understanding." She wipes her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "David was relieved. He's been trying to get me to scale back for months." "What changed your mind?" "Sitting in that living room last night, watching you walk away, I realized I didn't recognize myself anymore. When did I become the kind of person who thinks she deserves a $150,000 wedding? When did I become someone who would let her parents steal from her sister?" "You didn't know about the forged signature." "I should have asked more questions. I should have insisted on talking to you myself instead of letting Mom and Dad handle everything." She turns to look at me, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. "I should have been a better sister." The words hit me harder than I expected. I've been angry for so long that I forgot Emily is capable of growth, of change, of taking responsibility for her actions. "What are you going to do now?" I ask. "David and I are going to have a small ceremony. Maybe here, actually, if you'd let us. Just immediate family and a few close friends. We'll do the reception at Mom and Dad's house with a potluck dinner." She laughs, but it sounds watery. "David's parents are thrilled. They think we've finally come to our senses." "And Mom and Dad?" "They're devastated. Mom keeps crying and saying she just wanted me to have everything I dreamed of. Dad keeps talking about how he failed as a father because he couldn't provide for his daughter's wedding." I feel a familiar tug of sympathy, the old programming kicking in. Poor Mom and Dad, they just wanted to help. They just wanted Emily to be happy. Then I remember the forged signature, and the sympathy hardens into resolve. They didn't fail because they couldn't provide for your wedding, Em. They failed because they were willing to steal from their other daughter to do it. Emily nods, tears streaming down her face. "I know. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you." "You don't need to make anything up to me. You just need to be my sister. My real sister, not the family princess who gets everything she wants." "I don't know how to do that," she admits. "I've been the golden child for so long, I don't know how to be anything else." "We'll figure it out together." 2 weeks later, Emily and David have their wedding ceremony in my backyard. 25 people, a simple white dress from David's mother's shop, flowers from Mom's garden, and a cake Emily bakes herself. The total cost is under $2,000. It's the most beautiful wedding I've ever seen. Emily glows in a way that has nothing to do with expensive makeup or professional photography. She looks genuinely happy, genuinely grateful, genuinely in love. David can't stop smiling, and his parents keep commenting on how sensible and grounded their new daughter-in-law is. Mom and Dad are there, but things are still strained between us. They apologized profusely and promised never to overstep again, but trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight. We're taking it one day at a time. During the reception, I find myself standing on the dock, watching the sun set over the lake. The party continues behind me, laughter and music and the clink of glasses, but out here it's just me and the water and the quiet. "Thank you." I turn to find Emily beside me, still in her wedding dress but barefoot now, her hair coming loose from its simple updo. "For what?" "For saying no, for standing up to all of us, for showing me what really matters." "Emily, I'm serious. If you hadn't stopped us, I would have married David in a $150,000 spectacle that we couldn't afford, built on the sacrifice of someone I love. I would have started my marriage drowning in debt and guilt." She takes my hand. "Instead, I'm married to my best friend in the most beautiful place I know, surrounded by people who love us for who we are, not what we can provide. You did this, Em. You made the choice to change. Because you showed me it was possible to choose myself, to set boundaries, to say no when something isn't right. We stand together in comfortable silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. What happens now? I ask. Now, David and I start our life together. In the one-bedroom apartment we can actually afford, with our thrift store furniture and our student loan debt and our small, manageable dreams. Sounds perfect. It is. She squeezes my hand. And you? What happens now for you? I look back at the house, my house, where the party is winding down and people are starting to clean up. Mom is in the kitchen, washing dishes without being asked. Dad is folding chairs and stacking them by the door. David is collecting empty beer bottles and joking with his groomsmen. This is my family. Messy, imperfect, still learning how to love each other without conditions or expectations. But they're here, in my space, respecting my boundaries, celebrating something beautiful without demanding that I sacrifice for it. Now I live my life, I say, in my house, by my lake, on my terms. Alone? I smile, thinking of the support group I've been considering starting for people with toxic family dynamics, the online dating profile I created last week, the pottery classes I want to take in town. Not alone, just free. Emily nods like she understands exactly what I mean. Later that night, after everyone has gone home and the dishes are done and the decorations are put away, I sit in Grandma Rose's rocking chair and look out at the lake. The water is dark and still, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. My phone buzzes with messages, thank you texts from wedding guests, photos from the day, a long message from David telling me how grateful he is that I helped Emily find her way back to herself. But the message that means the most is from Rachel in Portland. Saw the wedding photos on Facebook. Emily looks genuinely happy for the first time in years. You did good, babe. Grandma Rose would be proud. I think about that as I rock slowly back and forth, listening to the night sounds of the lake. Grandma Rose, who left me this house not just as a place to live, but as a foundation for building a life on my own terms. She understood what it meant to be independent, to be strong, to be enough just as you are. Tomorrow, Emily and David will start their new life together. Mom and Dad will continue the long process of learning to see me as a person instead of a resource. And I will wake up in my own bed, in my own house, by my own lake, with my own choices stretching out before me like an endless horizon. For the first time in my life, I am truly free, and it feels exactly like coming home.